So it's an immense pleasure to greet you all on yet another discussion on AI Challenged. The discussion is becoming more and more important because we see that AI is now entering all levels of our life, and it's also extremely provoking a lot of discussions because we're not really sure where we're heading with this. So, in today's discussion, we will be diving more into a regulation and governance. Is it even possible in the time of AI, of this rapid development? What can we actually regulate and what can be a subject of legislation? So I have an immense pleasure to have really very distinctive guests today, very relevant to discuss this topic. But before we dive into the whole story, let me just say a few words about this year of AI Challenged. It's a collaboration between three organizations, Eco-Civilization Movement, La Care, and Amolingua. Three of us joined our interests and ambitions, and this is the result. Let me just say a few words about the Eco-Civilization Movement, who's hosting all of these discussions. We are a disruptive global cluster of people who care. That's what unites us. It's a safe space for engagement, collaboration, and innovation, and an emerging foundation for possibly future civilization. We do believe that we live the world we imagine and manifest. So, of course, at the beginning, I have to raise this question: what kind of world are we imagining now? And I hope this discussion will help us to, just dive a little bit deeper into this as well. Eco-civilization really works a lot with the consciousness. We keep consciousness in the focus. We try to move from connection to trust, which is becoming even more relevant in the era of AI. We do believe that we need to move beyond the mindsets to integrate soul, heart, and mind into a collective system awareness and act from that point. We seek life-affirming living systems in practice and bring them together and try to give them a space to speak. And of course, we try to learn how to navigate the unknown, being technology, timing, emergence. And technology we do see as an amplifier and as a tool. But is that true today? So our stand, as we stand now on AI, is that AI is a partner in delivering life-affirming, Earth-centric ecosystems, a mirror, an amplifier, and a test of humanity's readiness for thriving. Are we really using it in this way? And what has regulation to do with it? As I said, this is just another session in the series. We've conducted so far 4, so this is the 5th, and these discussions will continue to go on until the end of the year. And as I mentioned before, next year we do expect to publish a book. So these are the 3 of us who share the burden of organizing all that and searching for best speakers we can get on a particular topic. Dear guests and participants, these are 3 speakers of today. I'm immensely proud and happy for bringing these 3 people together because I know that each of them will share a very unique point of view in a very constructive way, but with immense experience speaking through them. Let me first just mention one more time, even though you can read all this on your screen, but Vera, it's a real honor and such a pleasure to host you in today's session. Vera, and myself, we met in 3 commissions back when we shared this responsibility as commissioners. But Vera stayed in Brussels and very responsibly took over as a vice president of the European Commission for Values and Transparency. So Vera, I'm very much looking forward to engage on this particular topic with you. Welcome.
Thank you. I was missing you the last 5 years in the Commission.
Well, here you go. Maybe we got just another chance to find a new platform where we can work together and engage. I think we were a really good match. And,
yes.
Just the way that we all stay together, connected, proves the point, right? So really, really happy to have you with us. Mitya Yermol, we go way back when we were still a very young, how should I say, young business and people trying to solve the world and just make the living.
We are still young.
We're still young in our hearts. And of course, depends what you compare the two. But Mitya, great to have you. Always great to host you in our sessions. You now are one of the co-creators really of so many different initiatives around the world, but here I invited you as a UNESCO chair on open technologies for open education resources and open education. You're part of Institute Josef Stefan in Slovenia as well. So very happy to have you here and hear your opinion on this pressing subject.
Thank you.
And Silke, we've met during my period as a commissioner in Brussels. We worked shoulder to shoulder together on many issues, many times disagreed, but eventually with a lot of dialogues and discussions, we found our way forward, and you were an immense contribution to our professional work as a member of the cabinet. So, and now, as we can see, you are working in the field of internal market industry entrepreneurship, but also in European industry, especially in the field of decarbonization. But last time we spoke, you told me that you're very much connected to the AI subject, and especially from a science point of view and the contributions that AI has made to science. So we are all eager to hear your opinion as well. Welcome.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Violetta. It is great to reconnect with you and with you as well, Mrs. Jourova. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Happy to discuss with all of you today.
So, without further ado, and to really use the time best we can in this discussion, I'd like to raise the first question. And really all three of you and also the audience, I'm inviting in an open dialogue. Who knows where this path will take us today, but really like to address these challenges that are on the table, and we can read wherever we look, we read about stories like the last one just happened on Friday with this conflict that happened in the US with Claude and with the company actually that launched it. And so where are the limits? Where is really the intervention of the state necessary? Are we even at the position that we can intervene on a fragmented level? Or is it time for something else? Is it time to act as global civilization? Who knows? I'm curious what you think. So I'd like to invite first Vera to share her points of view about AI and the future. Is it really our future, or is it just a distraction? Are we focusing too much on AI, or what? Vera?
Okay, thank you. Very broad question, and I think a very appropriate one to start with these basics. A few years ago, I was in Davos, and AI was the dominant topic. I think it was 2022 or 23. And the politicians were divided into two groups, the techno-optimists and techno-apocalyptics. Almost nothing between. I belong to the first group, yeah? And after lengthy discussions and in fact, moving somewhere in uncharted territory, we were all speculating I had a meeting with the boss of IBM. And he asked me a very short question. When will you change the labor laws in the EU, which enable us to fire the people as soon as possible because we need to replace them by AI? So it was back to the earth immediately. And I don't want to say that it was the moment when I started to be scared and shift a little bit to the AI apocalyptics, but I made the journey, and today I am more scared than happy about this. Of course, AI is something which we cannot stop. And you rightly had on the slide before that AI should be a partner, that AI is a mirror, and AI is the amplifier. What we see in the mirror, it is still in our hands. So what I want to say, AI must not become the boss. And I am afraid that we might miss the moment when the AI will be taking the power from us and becoming the boss. And I am unhappy to say that the EU is the only continent where we really did something concrete, not to give it fully to the AI and to keep under control the development of AI, in spite of a horrible criticism that the EU is only regulating, that it's not innovating at all. This is responsible, what we are doing, because not all innovations are good and not all regulations are bad. And when I look at Trump and his immediate reaction on Biden's efforts to set some rules for the secure AI, which was, by the way, also the agreement between United States, European Union, and Canada within G7. He issued the presidential order, and Trump cancelled it. It means that he totally unblocked all the possible guardrails which we need as the human beings, not to become subordinates to AI, which will show us very bad picture in the mirror, which will be biased, which might be politically abused, and which might be even used in a very wrong way against the human beings in defense, or better to say, in the war. So do I sound like alarmist? Maybe. But I think that it's high time we act, and I mean it. We need to show the rest of the world that the AI regulation has a meaning. You said, Violeta, that this is the group of people who care. Let's care. Let's be vigilant, and let's also undertake the risk of being criticized as being old-fashioned enemies of the development. And maybe last comment, we see a very speedy development. The development in the world of technologies could never be, how to say, the law and the rules always were slower than the technological development. Yeah, and there was always big money going first, big inventions in technological world going second, and law after. And it pays. It is valid and it is visible. It's proven in the AI sphere 100 times, because when we started to regulate the first version of AI Act, there was no clue about ChatGPT, about OpenAI action. And it appeared in the course of the legislative work. And I have to say, I was one of the negotiators of the AI Act. And what resonated in my ears was what I think Eric Schmidt, the former Google boss, said, that AI, and it's some 7 years ago, AI is still a teenager, still willing to be taught by the parents. It resonated in my ears at the moment when I realized that the big generative models, ChatGPT and further things like you mentioned, Claude.
Anthropic, yeah.
Anthropic. That's the AI which asks for driving license. It's getting out of the control of the parents. So let's use maybe a last chance. I don't know how much time we have to really discipline the AI and to make a worldwide agreement that human beings must be at the beginning of the technological new thing. Human beings should be able to look into the algorithm and check it and audit it. And the human beings must be in command of saying, let's stop this madness. This is turning against the people. We still can do it.
Okay, Vera, allow me just a quick sub-question here. If I heard you correctly, this should be done on the level of humanity. So do you think we have a capacity right now? Do we have a force that can bring humanity together and we can actually address AI challenges on a level of humanity, not on a level of individual states? And maybe Trump just learned that because on Friday he acted against what you just said that he stand for in the G7. So Anthropic challenged him with his new level of language structures at Claude. So what do you think about that?
I described the past, when Trump came and he did this quick action. I think that I believe that there are these ideas on all the continents, that this is really serious and that we still have a chance to do something. I saw some predictions. One of them was that we will achieve global agreement on secure AI only after some kind of AI Chernobyl. It will be late, but we should be aware of it, that in history, looking back, there were many cases or situations when the people started to think about humanity and good things for human beings after horrible catastrophes. So let's hope this will not happen, but it will need really global agreement. There was a good start of it I think it was November 2023, when the Brits organized a big summit on secure AI. The Americans were there. The Brits asked me, because I was at that moment responsible for that, they asked me whether EU has some objections against inviting Chinese to Bletchley, to London. And I said, of course, the Chinese must sit at the table. We must understand what they are doing and what they are planning. And Violeta, you know very well that we tried to position ourselves vis-a-vis China. And there was that category, China is a collaborator on some things, a competitor in something, and a direct rival in other fields. And I would say that China must remain the collaborator here, because look at where we collaborate in the field of the global poverty and in the field of climate. So these are really global sized things, and AI definitely is one of them, or additional one. So coming back, there was a chance. In Bletchley, we came to a very good conclusion and agreement to have a global size agreement on secure AI. Then we handed it over to United Nations. And I'm afraid it's sleeping, or nothing big is happening now. But maybe it's the lack of my interest in the topic at this moment, because I deal with many other things,
Okay, but this might be the perfect moment to bring Mitya on board. I know that UN has just issued some important documents, I think from India a few weeks ago. But also, Mitya, how do you stand on these issues, and what would be your opening contribution, please?
Yeah, so thank you very much for inviting me, and in particular with the prominent speakers as well. So my point is, so we do research on AI for ages, and so Violeta was not mentioning that actually we are part of we are kind of managing the International Research Center on AI and the auspices of UNESCO, where we are dealing with everything above the technology, so the consequences and implications of AI. And of course, we deal with those issues that we are discussing today in also in these legislative frameworks, and yeah, being involved deeply into recommendation that came from UNESCO on ethics on AI. And of course, we are involved with the OECD and all the other international organizations as an experts on AI. The truth is that this is not this is not a normal technology. It's not traditional technology. It's something else. And something else is now really pushing limits of not just our understanding of what this thing is, but also how do we behave? How do we behave? And it's not just about simple issues like this is technology we will use, we will be empowered, and there will be supermans everywhere around. The things are now changing really deeply, profoundly, and that we see that in the level of science research, in now in the, for example, European proposals. This is a complete mess today. The number of articles, papers being published in scientific conferences is just overwhelming. So we don't have mechanisms neither to understand what's going on in the level of publishing. So there are a lot of things happening, and of course the other part is the business part. And so today, since we work with students and with researchers that are also developers, so we see the development thing is completely changed. Business models behind software is being completely changed, and we talk to lawyers, so their business model is being completely changed. So it's not simple anymore. It's very, very difficult. And so if you go too deeply down into the layer of how this affects humanity very, very profoundly. So it's like I try to compare this to the, phantom limb experiment. So, when people are getting rid of a limb, then you still feel it and still, you still have a pain. So now we have a kind of a limb experiment, a phantom brains. We have a kind of phantom brains. So whatever comes out, we really don't have the proper distinction about the results that are coming off with this thing, because it's well structured, it's well written, it's kind of based on fundamentals which we understand. But the consequence of that is that we actually just now are becoming cognitively lazy. We don't really do much anymore on the sense of basic things like writing the text, like preparing ideas. Like you just ask, you just go, you discuss, and then it's instantly it comes out. The issue, of course, is the next layer as well. So if you can imagine that, the next layer would be an interface in your brain that will directly communicate with this thing, which is, Elon Musk is developing this stuff. So then there will not be any more a phantom limb, not phantom brains, but phantom personality. Because
souls.
how would you distinguish something coming out of your mind that this is your idea or the idea of the thing? And those are the things which we are not prepared of. So, and everything that I said before, so all the systems that we have, even on the level of legislation, we were involved in the definition of AI under, so when was that defined first? Under OECD. We had to change that. It's getting so fast that we are not prepared with the mechanisms that we have today to actually respond properly to this technology. And this is just one of this. This quantum computing is coming as well. And we don't know. We are just too far away with the systems that we are running. So the thing that we and you mentioned a bit of that as well. So the fact that we are doing like different types of environments through which you could connect the legislative power plus researchers plus businesses, like sandboxes. This is one of the potential potential approach to the dynamic legislation. But
Could you explain,
legislation.
Mitya, just for the sake of argument, could you explain the sandbox concept?
So the sandbox is kind of an environment in which you use developed technologies, and then you put it there, and then you test this technology through with several mechanisms, so several methods. So technically, legislatively. So you try to understand what are the consequences, and then you try to somehow adapt those things before they are getting into the proper use on the market.
Can I ask
And
you
this
here
is
a
how you.
question, Mitya, because you made a couple of very important statements before, and we also have a comment by Tanuva that it seems like it's less about technology and AI, but more about humans
Us.
and
Yeah,
us. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
So even now that you explained this sandbox, you didn't mention testing human behavior.
No, sure.
So how does that come into the play, and do we see some more development in that area?
No, not really. I mean, even if you go to talk to schools, for example, when you actually are, you are kind of a support growing up a citizen, a future citizen. We don't have mechanisms there as well. So how this influence humanity right now is like it's easy. You save time, you save energy, which is which fits into any living organism. But the things that we are doing have consequences, and that's the difference. It's not just if I am putting out something which is a contract between me and you, for example, using whatever LLM. This contract has the consequences of me and you, not just on me. So it's very different approach how we are establishing a kind of a relation to this thing. As I said, we are lazy, and the autonomous robots that will come in your house. What will be the relation to this thing? This will not be it. It will be somebody coming in your house, and that's a completely different perspective when you think about what is the relation between humans and technology. And I would say that this is not just the technology; it's more than just the technology. And yeah, so and I agree with what was said before. So, and since we are UNESCO trying to support UNESCO, we try to go into that direction to bring together Chinese and US, and so US is not UNESCO, but still people from the West, East, and Global South, which are more or less excluded from everything that is going on right now, and try to
And
make
nobody
something which will
wants to
be.
say Russia as well. We have no clue what is happening
No,
in Russia because
exactly. So
nobody is
we are
bringing them on board.
exactly we are as UNESCO we are supporting all the member states, 193, independent of politic views, independent of their legislation, their frameworks and stuff. So we try to engage them and try to make something which will be for a better world, in the sense that those legislations, frameworks, activities, mechanisms that we'll establish would be global, not just national or regional, like for example Europe or US or China or Russia. But as I said, it's different. It's really different. And even us, we are developing those technologies. We don't really understand why it works so well and why it actually is getting over just being a technology.
So, before I go to Silke, I have now listened to Vera and Mitya very carefully, and I cannot but ask the question, why are we doing that? Why are we so eager to work with something that we don't really understand and let it connect to every single layer of our life? And why are we trying to make this technology look like humans? And why don't they keep square heads and really pleasant colors to make sure that we understand that that's technology. Vera, I remember that at the beginning of our mandate, we put together the first strategy on AI under Juncker's Commission. And we were debating about 3 elements. Red button, that you can always switch off technology, which I don't know if that is even possible today, right? Knowing who's responsible always behind every app to know which person is responsible, and have the ethical and moral dimensions of every technology well under control. So just a quick response before I go to Silke, maybe, how do you feel now?
I feel like in those years, speaking about how to make the toys safer, children toys, absolutely uncomparable. Red button, yes, it's more relevant now than before. And now, in those years back, what was it, 2016, who would say one day we will ask ourselves, or I don't know whom, is there at all somebody who can switch it off? Because that's the question now. As for the who is responsible, yes, it was again toys. It was about consumers' protection. It's fine to discuss who is responsible for the accident of the driverless car.
But, or suicides that are done based on
but it grew so much that now it looks like a very marginal question. And ethical standards, yes, we did it. We developed the first set of ethical standards for secure AI, and there were some answers on what Mr. Yermal just said. For instance, if you invite somebody to your household, who will it be and how he, and will it be he? How will it behave, and will it be secure? And we discussed, and rightly so, the questions of discrimination, of the lack of identity. So on these ethics standards, it was the right thing to do. It was the biggest thing we could do with those days' knowledge. And we should come back to it again and again and insist on keeping these ethical standards, including the transparency and these things. And Violetta, when you ask whether we need it, whether we can stop, the question is who is we? Because those who make horrible money on it, they are not us. And the frustration of these days is that we live in existential uncertainty and anxiety because there are things which we cannot influence at all. We are just objects of something big happening everywhere around us, and we have no chance to influence that. So, good question, but I don't have answer.
Thank you for your very honest and straightforward reply, and we'll get back to all this, especially also because of the comments that we see. But Silke, I'll bring you on board now. You are, when we were discussing before this session, your positions, you were more coming from a scientific point of view. So I'm all eager to hear your comments about what's going on and where are we and where are we heading. And please unmute yourself.
There we go. Yes. Yeah, thank you. That's, of course, the million-dollar question. And I feel like I should maybe set the scene a bit, explain what I work on, and therefore what is my perspective on AI today, which is more of a user perspective and very, very concrete.
Yes,
and
please
if you
ahead.
allow, I will share some slides because we also did a little user survey. So first, where do I actually work? So I am indeed working for the European Commission. Let me just put this on deck. But I have just gone to an executive agency working for DG Grow and others. I come from DG Grow. And what do these agencies do? We manage, or the agency that I work for, which is called Health and Digital Executive Agency, HADEA, we manage funding programs for the European Commission. And in the case of my agency, well, you see here on the slide, these are a lot of funding programs. I will not go into the details, but
please hit the share button at the bottom, please, and share your slides.
Can you see my slides?
No.
No. Oh, sorry. Let me try again. I thought it worked. Now it should work.
Yes, it works now.
Yes. Okay. And it will become big in a second, I hope. So, so my agency manages a lot of money, almost 20 billion euros actually for this MFF, multi-annual financial framework, in the areas of health, food, digital, and industry. And I will not go too much into the detail, but when we look at the projects that we have in these different areas, we see today very, very clearly that AI, the use of AI, is no longer limited to digital funding programs. It is really becoming what you said in the beginning, Violetta. It has become an enabling technology, including health, including food, and of course, including everything that we do in funding of industry research and innovation projects. And since I'm responsible for managing the industry portfolio of the agency, so everything that is industry research and development projects, I'm now going to zoom in. Here also, I mean, no surprise, AI is really on the rise. 85% of the projects that we have in our portfolio that are currently running and that are funded by EU funds use some type of AI solution or methodologies. And the predominant ones today are machine learning that we know, generative AI, large language models, and vision AI, and for some of them also already agentic AI. And for this event today, I was curious, and even though we had little time, I asked my colleagues to run a little survey among our customers, and I see this really through the lens of our beneficiaries. So the researchers, the entrepreneurs, the research institutes that are funded or co-funded by us. And I asked them a few questions about the positives and the negatives and how useful they find AI today. So of course, this is not representative because the time was not long enough, and it is just the projects that we have on file now. But you can see here on the slide that AI is not a buzzword anymore. It has really, really found its way into day-to-day research workflows. I would say it can drive statistical analysis. It does predictive modeling and forecasting. It can flag patterns, anomalies, and complex data sets, many, many things. So if you count all these percentages together, we have more than 95% of our projects that say that AI is a useful tool in their respective fields of research. And again, to really take this back to something very concrete, I wanted to give you some examples of what are these projects that, for example, that use AI. Let me highlight just three. Something very successful is AI tools to support robotic construction operations. So they have AI-based perception, semantic understanding. And that means that these robotic construction helpers can intervene in very complex and harsh environments. For instance, after the blasting of a mine, or I think about tunnels. Violetta, we visited the Brenner Tunnel together from both sides. And so it can be very useful in difficult or even toxic environments, such as in the mine, that the robots do first the work, and then afterwards the human come in when it is less dangerous and it gets more complicated. Or another successful application is digital twins. So, for instance, models for wood microstructure generation, or predicting parameters for biocomposites. Here, it just means that we don't have to build the physical models. We can just go faster in research innovation because we can work with the digital twins instead of the physical models. And the last example, but there are many, many more, is that we see increasingly machine learning and other helpers in systems that identify, classify, and sort battery components, because, as you know, there are more and more different technologies to build batteries. And it is very important that we recycle and recover the materials used for these batteries, because we want to depend less on China and other third countries, and we want to be environmentally friendly. So here is an example where AI helps us to do that. But of course, it's not all rosy, and I really don't want to say this. And so we also ask our clients, our researchers and entrepreneurs, where do they see the pitfalls today? And the negative impact that was cited most frequently, 63%, was reliability, validity, and reproducibility. So our users were not necessarily certain about the robustness of the AI-derived findings. They weren't sure that they would be able to replicate the outcomes across different settings. They were also, and that joins a bit what you said, Vera, and you also, Violetta. There was doubt about trust and transparency. What is behind? Do we understand the algorithm? Do we understand what the AI actually does? And therefore, how much can we trust the result? And what do we do to test the result? And then another concern that I think we haven't discussed yet around our table came out of our user survey, which was what is actually the environmental impact of AI use. So on average, our users are, let's say, moderately concerned about that. You can see the whole range here on my slide. But many of them say that well, they're worried about high energy consumption, and also, again, lack of information, lack of transparency as regards the environmental footprint of the AI tools. I mean, we all read about it as the computing infrastructure and data center consume a lot of energy. So coming back to your $1 million question, and we can speak some more later about how do we control this. But I certainly see in our user reply that it is not going to go away because it is very, very useful. As an enabler in science, it speeds up innovation in a very powerful way. So I see long-term integration of AI in the scientific world, in the innovation world. This is not a passing trend, but that, of course, doesn't make the concerns go away. So I think what we need to discuss is how do we make sure that AI can be a part of the future, because it can do very, very useful things for us, and we need innovation in Europe. We need more innovation in Europe, but it cannot be without conditions, and its value ultimately completely depends. And here I really agree with all of you. It depends on how responsibly it is used, developed, regulated, and integrated into our society. I'm convinced, at least from the science perspective, that is going to shape our future. But how positive the outcome will be really, really depends on us.
Well, thank you very much, Silke. This was a very unique contribution to today's discussion, and thank you for raising this important issue of energy and green agenda. Because I don't have statistics right here on hand, but I've heard that all green energy that we generate, AI has consumed and went way beyond. So, and I think that is something that should concern all of us. So, where are the limits? Because we've heard that we are in the teenager stage. So when it becomes in an adult stage, how much energy will it consume, and where will that energy come from, and how? What my questions around this are also very much related to: will now all the investments be directed only to AI? And everything that AI consumes, what's happening with the overall well-being of our societies? And as Vera mentioned before, the AI applications are really in the hands mostly of some individuals, and that have a very dominant mindset. So where are we taking this? And before we go deeply in, I'd really like to invite for a short comment Sebastian, who will not stay with us all the time, but he was kind enough to jump in, especially because I already mentioned, Sebastian, your Montreal document that many of us signed, and I would love to hear also your view on this initial opening discussion of today's session, especially because you also work for OECD, and OECD is an important player in defining the AI landscape globally. So please, Sebastian.
Yeah, thank you, Violetta. And indeed, I'm just back from what we tend to affectionately call OECD AI Week in Paris, when it's basically the working party on AI governance and the Global Partnership on AI having their biannual meeting. So I really enjoyed listening to the discussion so far, because you are asking exactly the right question. Is AI a distraction? And I would argue in many ways, yes, it is. So how do I mean that? AI is indeed an accelerator and an enabler, as you put it, Silke, and it's also an amplifier, Vera, that's words you used, and it's even a mirror. But the question that we can ask is, well, an accelerator and an amplifier of what? What is the underlying evolution of society, or globally speaking, of societies, that AI is supposed to accelerate and enable or amplify? And it seems to me that we are not asking this question enough. at least not in many of the discussions that I'm witnessing. So today is a very welcome exception. The primary question that I think is missing in debates is not so much what's the grand vision of the future, but it's maybe a bit more concretely on how we strike all sorts of balances. So, for example, how do we strike the balance between an extreme vision of society that's completely egalitarian, and we know from history this doesn't work because it's just not compatible with human nature, on one hand, and the other extreme that we are veering now towards, where there's a trillionaire who's got everything and the rest of the world who's got nothing. So somewhere in between, there is a golden balance, and I wish that we would spend much more time in negotiating where the right balance is, and then making sure that AI amplifies and enables that. Similarly, where's the right balance between using resources of the planet and trusting that at some point in the future, we will figure out ways of kind of giving back to the planet and making it all balance out again. Because right now we're obviously living on borrowed time, resource and climate-wise. And there are many further balances that we have to strike. So that's it. The first of the 2 points I'd like to make. The second point is AI is not an inevitability. AI relies very, very strongly on huge amounts of capital. It relies on huge amounts of energy, of water, and also on many, many bright minds, on people dedicating their skills and their talent to AI. And so it's not an inevitability, and we are able to make decisions as societies and as legislators whether this immense amount of resources should go into AI or not. And this is also, I think, a big lever of regulation or the regulatory environment. I like to conclude on the reminder that there is a massive opportunity cost here. All the capital, all the resources, all the bright minds that are concerned with developing the next foundation model, they are missing elsewhere. And if we regulate to curb certain developments, it's not anti-innovation, it's a redirection of innovation. It's a redirection of the resources that we have available into other and potentially more productive directions. So those are just my two thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Sebastian. And I think you put several important messages on the table for further discussion. I will ask all of my guests to also comment on these proposals. But just a quick question before you leave is, do you think this can be addressed on a level of civilization, global civilization, or do you think this could be managed in a multilateral framework? Like within some sort of organization or network that already exists today?
I think there's elements of both. I see multilateral organizations like the OECD, like UNESCO, like the EU, as a way of translating a sense of what should happen into action, into concrete policy, into practicalities. But at the same time, I do believe there has to be a, let's say, more grassroots focused dialogue on what the narrative should be, on where we want to go as a global collection of societies, because otherwise there is no solid foundation for policy making. There might be a rational foundation, a logical foundation, but there is no, let's say, gut foundation, and it seems to me that this is necessary in order to make sure there is sustainable support from citizens.
Well, thank you very much. And this is a perfect opportunity to invite back Mitya and Vera and Silke with the question, could the participatory AI governance be the fourth way forward? Basically, an idea is emerging from the collective intelligence, commons, governance, and ecological thinking with the stewardship and coherence holding leadership. What do you think? We've heard some really great opening statements, and thank you, Sebastian, for contributing your points of view. So, Vera, what do you think? Are we capable of just taking the fourth way forward and work together jointly on participatory AI governance?
I am skeptical on this. I think that if we keep the AI as, what you said, Violeta, enabling technology, I would add the technology which receives our smart tasks. We have to task her. In Czech language, it's her, yeah? Intelligence. I don't know if in Slovenian language, is it her or him?
In German, it's her as well.
Yes.
It.
Of course, also wisdom is her in Czech language. But Mr. Sebastian spoke about the balance. Also, stupidity is at her, yeah, in Czech language. So let's not overdo that. But I think that we need to be in the lead of giving the tasks to AI. And Silke, you showed us the picture where it already helps. Health, transport, I don't know, agriculture. These are all so good things. So let's go for that. But let's have in mind that we are in the lead to say what will be good for people and what will be bad for people. And participatory, how did you call it? Participatory governance?
Yes.
I think, again, AI might serve as some kind of auxiliary tool to give us data, because our human beings' governance is sometimes intuitive, sometimes too much lobbied. We are not listening to the experts. Yeah, so okay, let's rely on AI, rely and confirm whether it's right. There is nothing against that, but the decisions to be taken it must be people explaining people what they are planning. And I speak about politicians, and I'm now working on another project in Brussels, and it's about how to innovate democratic system, and there is a chapter about democracy and technology. And we are at the beginning, but I'm sure that there will be a lot about distrust both ways. That the people cease to trust the politicians, and the politicians cease to trust the people. It's strange, very strange, and it's also dangerous. So if we add to this game AI as somebody unknown still, as somebody not trusted, as something not transparent enough, we will only complicate things horribly. So I am skeptical here, and I think that without giving the tasks to AI to do useful things for the people, we just cannot hand it over to the AI. And as Mitya said, we are becoming lazy. Governance, governing, leading, it's a bloody hard work, even dangerous work. It's becoming more and more dangerous to be politician. So how easy it would be to refer to the AI. It was there in his or her invention. We just followed the technological advice, blah, blah, blah. I can imagine the lack of responsibility or the decrease of responsibility if we really hand over part of the governing to the AI. And I am horrible when I start to speak. I didn't used to speak so much, Violetta. I got spoiled in the commission. 10 years, it's quite a long time. I worked 1 year at the university, and we were approaching. It didn't happen in practice, at Charles University, but we were discussing the usage of AI, and suddenly we realized that we are that close from seeing that a student uses fully the AI to write a thesis, and the teacher might use the AI to assess the thesis. So you totally withdraw from the space. So that's why at Charles University in Prague, we had to come very soon, very quickly with the rules, which gave the task and limited the impact and effect of AI on the study and on the scientific work. And I think that this has to be done also in the field of governing. Let's not be lazy. Let's not get rid of the responsibility and the need to explain people to people. But let's use AI being well tasked for useful things.
Well, very clear. And let's see, Mitya, how do you respond? And especially, do you have faith in this participatory modeling potentially being used for the way forward for the AI governance?
That's a hard issue. It's so first, as it is today, it's being run by profit or expected profit. So this is a fundamental technology as is seen today, like electricity grids, whatever. So, and this is one part, and then if this is like this, then of course the powerful elites will not allow something that would interfere with their business model.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is another part, of course, of this story is that there is quite a lot of, of course, this is also linked to the profits, to the business, which is, we need to make those things a little bit less expensive. And, there's quite a lot of research on that. So on the level of chips up to the level of new algorithms that are coming out. And that would mean that if this thing will become not so expensive to maintain and to run, and if you combine this to something which are autonomous entities that will have all these capacities, access to all these capacities, then we would probably be coming to the point then we would need to co-governance with those things, which is speculative, but it might happen. Even today, you have cases when, and you are politicians, that people actually in politics are using all these technologies to support them with ideas, with the policies and stuff. Even there was a case in Slovenian parliament, like half a year ago, when there was a prime minister or somebody coming out saying that ChatGPT said this and this and that, and the other one was arguing to the contrary. The ChatGPT said this and this and that on the other end. So interfering, so the how deep this technology goes into politics as well is immense. And you can look at this in several ways again. So through using these technologies for, co-creating policies and stuff. On the other end, how you can more or less disrupt the complete nation, because it's easy today. So, constructing a complete campaign, so misinformation campaign, that's easy. So, and all those things are actually somehow adding to complexity of how to govern those things. And I don't think we have an idea. We don't have the idea yet how this will be done. And we will probably try to explore these ideas, but I think that this technology, I can speculate that this technology will be progressing so fast that we will be too slow to respond to something which is also co-governing the thing. And I don't want to be negative in that sense. I want to be positive. I just want to say that we need to be careful about impact of using these technologies in policy making as well. It's not decision support anymore. Before we had AI to provide you environments for better decision making. Now this is not anymore only this supporting you with decision making. And so you've seen these experiments, which particularly Anthropic is doing, with trying to experiment with the thing whether it will react differently. Probably the experiment that would be, how would you redefine the policies through the politicians to manage them to get to the point where this will be then working on behalf of you? That's an experiment that certainly somebody will be doing, and I guess it will be astonishing in the end as a result.
Okay, I got to challenge you here a little bit, Mitya. It feels like we're trapped already in this AI cloud and we're just one of the players in it. What I'm still trying to preserve this autonomy of humanity, that we're still outside this cloud, still observing and controlling it, and still deciding where and when it's going to be used. So could we even imagine, because if we can imagine, then we can deliver, right? Can we imagine that there is one step before that? Like, and I will use one example from my own experience. All the legislation that we worked on during my mandate were part of the participatory modeling. We engaged with stakeholders. We asked them for their opinion. We included them in the process of formulating the proposals. And then all of a sudden, they were part of it because they could recognize their own contributions in that text. So only then came the legislation. So what I'm trying to say is, I mean, I don't think it's too late that humanity claims this position, and collectively, even though we say, oh, politicians don't trust people anymore, and people, of course, don't trust politicians anymore due to all this confusion that it's right now. Yes, that is the fact. But if we all collaboratively engage in the process of decision making, something can come out that will be part of the collective opinion. Is that so impossible to imagine?
No, it's not impossible. I think that we need to learn the lesson first. Usually this is how it works. The learning, humanity is always about learning the lesson, and then maybe that will be better for at least several generations. And here, learning the lesson would certainly be that, one of the examples that I've heard recently, and my colleague from UNESCO chair from France told me that. So there was they had these local elections, and they were asking people around, so how local elections, it's not national, local elections. So how did you decide about what to vote? Yeah, and this was like more than 50% of people were asking whatever LLM what to vote. So it's, we need to learn the lesson that this is something that actually is giving us a challenge to respond properly. I don't know what this lesson would be, but certainly we would need to understand the consequences of using this technology for, my personal benefit, just to get easy through it. Like, being lazy, and so I would just dictate, and then the document comes out, and then I will send it to you or to whatever, because it's easy. But then it's okay when it works, except for these several percent when it doesn't really work and there are consequences, and somebody will be then harmed for that. And so I think we can discuss the models. We have the models. We had models for other industries, for pharmaceuticals, we have those models. So how to maintain those things under control. But here, I think it's really getting in all the areas of social life, of human life, so that we need to just somehow we cannot set the rules in the sense of how would I behave in my home, or how do I behave in the traffic, or we cannot do that. So we have to learn, and learning is always through lessons. So this is my I think somewhere we will come to this kind of symbiotic relation with this thing in a way that will be healthy for both sides.
Okay, so so if I hear you right, it's something like Vera said at the beginning. So we will take this responsibility of governance and legislation seriously when AI Chernobyl happens, not before. So
no, I'm not saying Chernobyl, and I'm not that. You can learn your personal lesson quite easy. You can learn your personal lesson in the school.
well, when does that become a collective lesson?
It's enough if I will be learning my personal lesson and your personal lesson, and we will share that, or you will experience this lesson like individuals. But then, if there's a critical mass of individuals learning the lesson, then you have something which is a baseline to build something which is on top of that.
Which then
I think
assumes that we have communicating tools that are willing to share these lessons in order to, other people to learn from.
we have it. I mean, even our kids today. So for them, it's like, using all this social media. For them, the first reaction is, this is a joke, because they grow up in kind of a different environment than we grew up. So there are mechanisms already in place, and these kids or the next generations are actually kind of already understanding that those things are actually providing a kind of a lesson learned in the sense of what's the reality and what not.
Okay.
And
Cool.
there are many others. There are many others. It takes time. So this is what I'm saying. We are human beings and humanity and society, and we need to respect each other. So for that it takes time. It's not, you cannot do it by night through night. So you have to take some time and some lessons learned and having a events like this, so that we share those experiences. We say, look, I did this and that, and then now, come on, what happened afterwards? So don't do it. Don't go into that direction, I think.
Okay, thank you. Vera, quick intervention, and then we'll go to Silke to respond to this topic. Vera, please.
Maybe I will give it to Silke first. Yeah, because I don't want to grab too much time.
Go ahead, because obviously that was a reflection. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So I think that we have to apply the combination of common sense and self-preservation instinct as human beings. And this is what we tried to do in the AI Act by listing the risky sectors. And these were exactly those sectors where it would be unwise to give it to the AI or to give big part of the decision making. It's the sphere of justice. It's the sphere of migration. It's the sphere of law enforcement, education. I think that we did this very precise decision. We made this decision of what should really remain in the hands of people. We have in Czech language some proverb that what is not for the people, it's for the gods. It must not happen that what is not for the people is for AI, yeah, and vice versa. In the AI Act, to my taste, and I am guilty for that because I was sitting there when we negotiated, we should be stronger on clarifying that the protection of the free speech is for the human beings, that the protection of copyright is for the human beings, that the protection of autonomous vote must be there. Yeah, so very, very basic things. And I think now when the AI Act will be upgraded, there will be a chance to add with strong emphasis these really key things which the people have to preserve for themselves. And last comment, I think that the Commission has a hard time now because you remember, Violetta, times when we started to regulate or prepare the regulation of digital sphere. It was GDPR, and then it was Digital Services Act and other things. In all these works, we had in mind that the technology has to adapt to people's habits, people's lives, people's priorities. So technology to be adapted to people. In
People's
AI,
behavior, yes, and
yeah, and in AI, suddenly we see that it is getting to the vice versa position. Yeah,
well, that is an excellent observation indeed.
that we have to be aware of that we begin to adapt to AI. This is dangerous. And the second, totally different paradigma kind of thing. Remember, Violetta, we were running next to each other, digital and green, telling the people, telling to ourselves, these are two things which are complementary, very well, synergy, fantastic. Is it still true when we look at the energy saving and the things which Sebastian spoke about to find the balance? And a last comment, we saw last week the strategy for technological sovereignty of the EU. When you look into that, and the new EU budget, a lot of money is going to be invested in AI and in the data centers. This is a kind of start of the race between the EU, US, and China. The race where we are at the beginning and they are somewhere up. And I am afraid that we are getting into the era of hysteria, that we have to win these races. But why? Why? Will it be good for people? Do we really need to replicate everything which we see in the United States, which obviously turns against the people's interests? So I think that, and you said it, I think, Silke, that yes, innovation's fine, being tasked well, it's my words, but I think that we should come back to the basics in Europe and ask questions. They should invite you, Violetta, you ask fantastic questions.
Thank you, but this point we need to explore further also in future discussions is, are we in or out? Are we now readjusting our lives to the AI, or are we still commanding technology to serve us? Silke, what do you think?
No, I would like to come back to your question about participatory approach, or depending on how we define it, a co-creation.
Yes,
And
please.
I have like three thoughts on this. Let's not forget, and we said this in the beginning of the conversation, that the EU plays a very special role here, because we're not only a developer and user of AI, but we have always also tried to be from the start a shaper of AI. With the AI Act, even if it was negotiated before the publication of ChatGPT, the GDPR, because personal data protection is very, very important in the realm of AI. And in the area of research funding, we have the fundamental principle of the human-centric approach. And I think this is what you have all been talking about, that it is for the human being, for the benefit of the human being, and not for the benefit of the technology. If we do research, if we do innovation, we do something for the common good to make people's life better. And if you use a technology to go there, it should be centered around the human. And as you said also previously, Violetta, these rules that we have and these ethical principles that we have set them in a complex, but in a co-creation process. And there are many steps that can be criticized in the process, the impact assessment, the public consultations, the thousands of amendments that we'll get from the European Parliament, the difficult discussions we have in Council, and all these different players acting together and then culminating in the trilogues. But in the end, these are all manifestations of co-creation and of involving people and coming up with rules and principles that are shared by a majority of people at any given point. And I personally really believe this is the way forward as well, even if it is complex. Maybe we need to explain it better, but we need to continue with this. And without AI, it must be our human intelligence that shapes the rules. That is the first step, shaping the rules. Now, how do we implement this today? Now, again, taking the example of my research projects, we have a participatory co-creation approach to implementing this because we evaluate the proposals that we receive first on a scientific level. So we look for excellence. And the most excellent projects get funding and the other not because funding is limited. But then there is a second level. We have a so-called ethics evaluation for the potentially successful projects. And for that, we have ethics evaluators in the Commission, but we recruit ethics experts on a rotational basis. So we have a huge community of ethics and a growing community of ethics evaluators in Europe that help us and look at the projects. And especially, of course, at the projects that use AI as one of the enabling technologies. And then there are several measures that can be taken. The ethics evaluators can say, this is fine, but actually this project needs an ethics advisor. Or even, and that would be then stronger, this project needs an ethics advisory board. So a community of experts and people who run along with the projects and actually ensure compliance, give advice, understand the projects, and step in every time that there is a doubt. And then, of course, we have means to intervene. We can ask for corrective actions because we are the funding authorities. We can suspend activities, and in the worst case scenario, we can just terminate the grant. No money if there is no compliance with ethics. So I think we're taking this seriously and we're doing this in a co-creational approach. We have the Commission, we have the policymakers, we have the researchers and the entrepreneurs, and we have independent experts that are paid by us, but they are not working for Google or whatever. They are working for themselves. They're independent people. I think this is very important. And then maybe one last word about the use of AI and what we do about this in the writing of the proposals. And Vera Jourova triggered this thought when she was talking about her students. What do you do if you have your students use AI, and how do you filter what they write, and how do you know who's good and who isn't good? We have exactly the same problem with our researchers and with our proposals because we see an explosion of the number of proposals. Why? Because, of course, it is much easier with AI to generate scientific language and to multiply the number of proposals with the same content. So there is not one answer that will solve it all. Some of it will us becoming more efficient and very, very astute, because today we can see whether something is AI generated or not, and we can also see whether it is replication of content that we have already seen. But in the future, I mean, this is for the new an upcoming multi-annual financial framework. We're thinking about going back more to oral presentations. So if you have the leader of the consortium, the lead researcher, the lead entrepreneur who has to come and defend his or her proposal. And there will be questions and there is a dialogue. This is an essentially human approach where you can test, excellent, and in that moment, in these 10 minutes or 15 minutes, this human being will be naked without AI sitting in front of you. I think that would be a very good test.
Silke, thank you very much for these interventions. I will definitely pick up a couple of them and then move us to the last part of the discussion. First of all, it's great to hear that ethical scrutiny is part of the process. This is something it has to be really strongly emphasized because I bet it is a unique EU approach. The second thing is this oral contribution. I teach at universities, and that's how we, at least in the universities where I'm present, we decided to take this direction that students, yes, they can take all AI tools to prepare, but they have to present and be convincing personally without any other tools. So that is definitely keeping a human being outside the AI cloud and still look at the AI as a tool. So I hope we can continue to raise these issues. It came out of this discussion very clearly. Let's not become part of the AI cloud. Let's be on the outside and use AI cloud as a tool. But I also like to touch something that Vera said, which is that I felt like the way how I understood your comments, Vera, is that we are somehow pushed now and we bought into the game of US competitive modeling game, right? I'm a very strong advocate that the competition is the worst imperialistic tool introduced and actually enables neoliberalism. So can EU preserve its own path and its own imagination of life and public space and public engagements and not be pulled into some sort of old neoliberalistic model of our future and come to the table with continuously unique approach and gain again the position at the top table for imagining the future of the world. And I think this is really crucial. We've done it with digital acts and that were introduced under Juncker's Commission and continues to do so. But why are we losing this? Just a quick comment from all three of you on that. How do you feel about that? And then I'll move to the last question. Vera, you're muted. But Mitya, you are unmuted. So maybe Mitya, you start.
Yeah. So I mean, we are not losing that. So I'm not saying that we are losing that. It's just say that as we discussed before, some of the things need time to become concrete. So, for example, with AI Act today, the status today is that, of course, this is somehow in the power, but then you have the complete mechanisms how you run those things. So that will be regulators, and then you have to educate regulators. You have to build up all the systems. You have to, set up the complete environment. So how to implement legislation that is coming out. I think this European approach is important because we somehow also show the way. So and we have like many of these delegations coming from all over the world to visit us, and then there's always this kind of a question that so how Europe sees this. What are the next steps? How do we implement those things? And what do you propose for us to do? So, and this is happening. It's not only by smaller countries; it's also by the leading countries in the world. So it's not that we don't have something which makes sense and that others would be following. And I think that things that you are proposing as well, so this kind of a new mechanisms would make sense because Europe has power to push things forward, certainly. And since we are kind of a neutral now in between all these things, so we can certainly play a decent role into this. But otherwise, it's like, yeah. So at the end of the day, it's like, if you are a company, you have to compete with all the other companies. And then if you have a little bit more limitations than the other companies, then you ask yourself, so why should I do that here? And why shouldn't I do that in another place?
Perfect. Thank you, Vera. You respond, please.
Yeah, we are not losing, and we strike back. And I like it. I like Europe at its best to say to Washington and Silicon Valley, I will leave out now China. Yeah, it's another topic, but I think that our message is clear that we maybe are losing some money because of not being so mature and so technologically rich, let's say. But we are definitely not losing our souls, our identity. We strike back. And it was very visible already when we adopted the GDPR, when we told the American techno oligarchs, look, when people are sharing their private data with you, they are not signing the contract with the devil by their own blood. It has limits. We want the people to keep their identity even in the digital space. When we developed and adopted the Digital Services Act, you see the reactions, JD Vance coming to Europe, patronizing and mentoring us, bashing us for not protecting the freedom of speech. They should look at themselves. And I think that it's absolutely needed that we keep our identity, our soul, and we can do it by, of course, the properly done regulation, but especially by some kind of societal reaction. Because this is about societal fabric. It's about our culture, about our languages. It's about our individual rights. And we have not disappeared in the digital jungle.
Super.
And we are not going to disappear in the AI flood. Yeah.
Perfect. Silke, quick reaction from your side. How do you feel?
I also entirely agree that we're not going to disappear. And who knows in the future? I mean, Vera Jourova is right. GDPR was the European idea that in the end got exported across the globe. I mean, little by little, and it's still in progress. And why not AI as well? And we have one lever for this, which is actually the standardization effort that is going on as part of the implementation of the AI Act, because the Commission has given to Sensenelec the request to standardize a number of areas. But our European standardization process that I'm a huge fan of, by the way, because it's also co-creation, has an international first approach. So if there is an international standard that complies with our European rules, we take it on board. If not, we do our European thing. But, and that's very important, it's a context, we engage with the international standardization community. And this is what is happening right now. Of course, how successful we are depends on the geopolitical feelings of the US, the Chinese, and how everybody thinks about AI. But I see two things that have recently started changing. In the US, it is the worry about data center and energy consumption. Because in the US, you start seeing now very recently grassroots movements against data center. For the time being, it's only not in my backyard, but this is growing because people do not understand why data center should be allowed to pump all the electricity and people then pay the bill for this because the networks have to be rolled out more and the energy and more has to be produced. So this is the weakness of the US. And at some point, maybe not this Trump administration, but they will have to react to this public pressure. In China, it is something else. In China, the issue is that unemployment rate is rising. In particular, youth unemployment rate is very, very high. Actually, internal consumption is not very good. The Chinese economy is not very good. They're just exporting. So they start being afraid of AI, not because only of the freedom of speech, which is another thing which we should not regulate, but because of AI taking people's jobs away. So they start thinking this direction. So I think we will soon have a windows of opportunities at international level to start setting some global rules in these fields that the others also feel sensitive about. So I'm optimistic.
Okay, thank you very much. Just by the way, China already passed a regulation that nobody can be laid off due to AI. So that was their very
pretty
quick
strong,
first
huh?
reaction. Yes, Vera, you wanted to interfere, and then I want to move to the last question.
I wouldn't be able to fall asleep in the evening without saying this. When Europe is criticized for not innovating enough, I always had to defend that we are 27 countries, border limitations, blah, 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 24 languages. But I sometimes use the argument that we are more risk averse as a weakness. The question is whether it is a weakness. We Europeans know very well why we do not want to undertake big risks. Because look back to the history. I will not go into that. We know all what horrible chapters of history we have behind us. And one more thing, those who undertake risks, they look at the higher the risk, the shorter the profit. And for whom the short, big profits serve to? Only to a little layer of the society. I am not a communist. I'm a social democrat. Just for you to know what I have in mind and heart. But I don't think the European society should pay all the price for the risk taking and then not to have any profit out of it. And I think that, again, this is a very, very natural instinct we have. Let's keep it.
A very strong one as well. And actually, it is some form of participatory modeling that we use in political decision making, which might have a chance to get improved and be used, and also for more participatory AI governance. But great intervention. Thank you for making that clear, Vera. And let me use now this opportunity and go to the last part. We have 20 more minutes. And I'd like to throw at you something that happened this year. You know now that I lead this global movement called Eco-Civilization Movement. We are present with our nodes in 52 countries now. And we kindly host ongoing discussions about the topics that people considered as important topics also for the next step in our evolution. We moved from people-centric to planet-centric thinking. And of course, due to the environmental challenges that are on the table. However, something politically very important happened this spring. China passed a document called Ecological Code, which they published their guiding principles about moving beyond industrial mindset, moving beyond industrial revolution towards ecological civilization as an overarching concept. I wonder what your thoughts are about that, and could such a reorientation be a major shift in the way we see the role of AI? While I'm asking that, let me point out that globally there are still three concepts how we deal with data and digital aspects of life. Chinese, which is the state owns everything. US corporations owe everything, and EU is still trying to defend the user's rights, which is a completely different approach to that. So could this ecological consciousness and maybe a new ecological revolution now being pushed by one of the major players globally change also the way how we see AI. And I've already heard Chinese representatives talking about a global civilizational AI infrastructure, which should be managed responsibly globally. Please, whoever wants to come first. Mitya, go ahead.
No, ladies first.
Well, sorry.
Okay, no worries. So, so again, it's about, as I said, it's about the critical mass. So, and here I think most of the countries, in particularly in the global south, are the ones who would be certainly following. It's a lot of also about the cultural background. So the cultural background of the East and Europe are a little bit different, but not that far. And so I think how this can evolve from here on is that on one side AI is giving us a kind of a mirror, so it is a reflection of who we are and what we do, and in particularly where we are very, very wrong. This is one side. The other end is what I said. So lessons learned, and then I think that this kind of a new generation, I think the generations that are coming after us, who actually are now having a kind of a very strange vision of. So what we are projecting to them is something which is not that secure as we were when we were in that age. So for them, it's complete chaotic mess. So there will be one willing to follow that. Very, I'm very certain that because of different approach, they grew up as a global citizens already. We were not. They understand that this technology can help but also harm. So they're all things are there set up. Is just about, as I said, taking time and critical mass. But yeah, I would be positive in that sense. Although again, I think that there might be a challenge we would be facing with that we would need to involve this AI somehow in this loop, not just being separate out of the cosmos. There will be a challenge where we will be faced with how to deal with this thing in a kind of a symbiotic way.
Thank you. Very interesting. Good. Silke, what do you think?
As I said before, I find it very inspiring that the big blocs, China and EU and US, also have their doubts. I'm very happy about this, and I'm very happy about the Chinese law, and I would certainly like to know more about it. And it could do two things with us in terms of inspiration. First, think better about if we want to have data centers more in Europe, how do we go about the energy supply? And why don't we have an obligation to couple them with that amount of renewable energy just next to the data center? And why don't we couple that with very innovative energy storage solutions? Because the problem of not having enough green energy is actually a problem of partly national laws and not have enough efficient energy storage. And if you have enough renewable sources installed and they're just next to the data center and with the storage capacity, then I mean we kill many birds with one stone. I mean electricity prices go down and not up, and we save the planet for this as well. And then we can still decide whether we want these data centers or not. That's the first thing. The second thing.
Can I just ask you a quick question regarding that? Two flagship projects under Juncker Commissions were energy storage, efficient energy storage storage and dual stream batteries, where every battery can be used as a source or as a usage. So how do we stand on these two flagship projects? Do you know anything?
I remember very, very well. We even thought about all the little batteries of the electric vehicles to be used as a buffer in order to balance out the grid. These ideas are still there, but I'm afraid to say that they're not yet implemented as much as they should have. Part of the issue is that, as you know, the green agenda has slipped a bit more to the background. But what is happening going on in the world and on the planet, I'm sure it will come back to haunt us because we cannot do in any other way. And anyway, we already have the technology to do it in a good way and in an efficient way, or we're about to invent it. So it is just a question of putting it in place. But the irony is actually we need AI to then balance the grid and to know, okay, this battery has to come on and this battery has to kind of inject into the grids. And you know this just as well as I do, Violetta. But the guiding principles are still there. And in my view, this is really one of the solutions, one of the keys to the solutions of the data centers. And the second idea that it has in mind is sharing infrastructure to make this as a European reply. So for the time being, I don't see a global infrastructure because there is currently just not enough trust between the US and Europe and China to put everything in common, because you've seen the technology sovereignty strategy. It's more like we need to be independent if we have to be independent. So for the time being, we do this at EU level and we invite friendly countries to be part of this. And we do two things, which I think are both very important. One is the data spaces that we have created or that we are in the process of creating, because as you know, AI feeds on data. We have health data space, we have mobility, we have energy, agriculture. I can't name them all, but the idea is to put this all together for people to work with in a responsible way and in line with data protection regulation. And the second initiative that I wanted to mention here is new. It's called RACE, the Resource for Artificial Intelligence Science in Europe. And that is like a new virtual institute that will bring together essential resources for developing AI, such as computational power, data, talent, and finances. And of course, that's also kind of co-financed by Europe. And that's a first step where we have trust between the 27 member states to do this in the right way and to do it the European way.
Well, that's a great news. So let's hear now Vera's respond. And Vera, I'm particularly also interested in your position on this global infrastructure, especially now I'm going to share a bit of my position as well. I'm very much interested in that, especially because I believe that what humanity creates in a form of data, humanity should own, and nobody can own that but humanity. And corporations, whoever uses the data, should pay a fee to humanity.
I told you, Violetta, that there was a conviction that the people will be willing to sign the contracts by their blood, to sell themselves. Yeah, and it didn't happen, and it must not happen in the future. That's why I am very much on your side when you say that the data should belong to the ownership of the people. And in the EU, not only legislation, but also philosophy, personal data is something you cannot sell. You are making it available. You can take it back anytime when you wish. And I think that this is a big revolution and protective step against again, I have to say it, American way of dealing with the private data. I was in the United States for the first time in my life when I was 50, and I was already commissioner. And I went to, they gave me some free time, so I went to several shops, and the shop assistants then asked me, hello, where are you from? And what do you like? And so many personal questions. And I was offended by that. And I was very rude to them. And then in the chain of the shops, this was happening and again and again. And so then I came to the first one to apologize and to explain that I am a strange person from the east of Europe who does not like personal questions. But it was the moment I realized we are different in this, and Europeans are sensitive. And very demanding, and let's keep this. But maybe coming back to China by 2 sentences.
And eco-civilization as a sort of chapeau proposal.
But I wanted to mention something on China. When they show willingness to do something good for global, hallelujah, fine. We have to be aware that they will never do anything, especially anything they have to invest in, what is not good for the state of China, of the Communist Republic of China. So we always have to keep a level of suspectability. When they come with something positive, we should have a little bit of skepticism about that. And big portion of skepticism when it comes to China using AI, because when we say, and Silke mentioned it several times, we are human-centric continent, but they are state-centric.
Exactly, yes.
And when I hear about the technological development in China and the social scoring, emotions reading, that's the dystopia we will never want to live in Europe. So let's be very vigilant not to get this infection of let's use AI because it helps us to govern. Yeah, coming back to the question before.
Original, yes. Well, wow, what a journey. We're almost at the end, so I'd just like to ask each of you the last question. The discussion was very rich. We opened many different aspects of this topic. But what would be last message that you want to share in a sense of AI and governance and legislation? What would you hope for as the next step?
I will start by two things, and I know I have to be short. First of all, not to let the technological and money lobbying defeat our human beings' interests, because this is happening. Yeah, it's one thing, and the other is more maybe philosophical. Let's wish the human being's wisdom will always win over artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm. What?
We don't hear you.
Okay, I'm unmuting her. What did you do, Silke? Unmute yourself, please, at the bottom.
Yeah, yes. I couldn't hear what you said. I'm the same problem.
No, I'm just asking you now. What is your
what is my wish?
Last comment.
I wish that Europe strikes the right balance between human interest and wisdom on the one hand and innovation on the other. And we're an old continent. We're very wise. I believe we can do it.
Thank you very much. Lovely. And last but not least, Mitya.
Yeah, so any technology should be used for good, and that includes AI. So everything that we do should be should be oriented towards AI for good, and that would mean ideas, implementations, use, and then all these issues more or less we can sideline, because the issue we have right now is that if AI would be used for bad, then we have a problem.
Thank you very much. I hope each of us will take a little piece of this discussion and continue to explore and imagine how the world could potentially be when AI is really our partner and a tool for enabling the civilization that humans well. So thanks again. For me, that was a really high level and very honest and very straightforward discussion. And my wish is that we create as many spaces like this and continue these discussions in different circles, because I do personally believe in participatory modeling, and I believe that when humanity engages, humanity can deliver. And individuals are like sparkles, redirecting the thoughts and conversations. So thank you very much. And as I said before, I will share all this with you as well, and we will share bits and pieces on social media, and the entire conversation will be published on the Eco-Civilization webpage. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a lovely evening.
Thank you,
too.
everyone.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
And thank you very much to everybody who was with us. Thank you. I know that people keep coming in and out. The important thing was really the focus on conversation and the way that we share it further in the clouds. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Violetta. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.